Kenai for the Kenai. As always, I'm here with Eric and Cobran, and today we've got another recovery story. We're here with Zack today. Zack, how are you, man?
I'm good, man. How's it going?
Always good.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. I know, Zack, we were just recording here a little bit ago, and then we heard the knock on the door, but we were recording. We had to stand him up outside, but I guess he was just ended up hanging out with a friend for a little bit. So glad we can record now. Currently work at PCHS, right?
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I came down here to say, like, hey, we're going to come in, yesterday I came down, we're going to come in and record, or last week I was like, we're going to come in and record on Wednesday, and somebody gave me a Post-it note with your email, and they said, oh, Zack, here's his email. And then I had this Post-it note today, and then I looked at this, I was like, these must be the same guys, so super stoked you're here, because they were saying that you do peer support, right?
Yes, sir.
At PCHS. So what is that like?
Our program's kind of new.
Okay.
You know, not everybody that comes in to talk to us has like substance abuse issues.
Sure.
Some guys just need like a little extra hand. You know.
Cool.
And we're just there to kind of let them know that they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't have to do this all by themselves, and most importantly, they're not the first guys to go through something like this.
Yeah.
You know, the guys that come into my office, I've really been where they are, you know, and they can see that, and it's pretty comforting to a lot of my guys.
Yeah. I know when you, not to make you uncomfortable or anything, but like when you came in, like just super, I mean, kind of go with the flow, laid back, and I was thinking right away, like, this is going to be a good podcast, because the podcasts that seem to do well, pretty laid back, pretty easygoing, like, you know, man, I've been there, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I get what you're saying there, like how you kind of might give this, like you said, people kind of are comforted by that a little bit.
Yeah,
like,
and we meet them where we're at, you know.
Totally.
We meet them where they are, and we just kind of, whatever works, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say like that they're not in this alone, you said not only substance abuse. So what do you mean when you say like not in this, like in life? Just in general,
Some of these guys are looking at
troubles?
homelessness.
Sure.
You know, they're in between jobs. They just need a ride to the doctor. You know, one of my guys came in fresh out of prison, and the only thing he needed was a ride to go get work boots.
Yeah.
You know, so.
How do a lot of people hear kind of about the services and all the help that you're able to provide?
Walk-ins, word of mouth.
Sure. So they walk in like for a doctor's appointment? Yeah, podcasts.
Yeah.
Podcasts.
So they come in and they say they have like a doctor's appointment, and they're like, or something, or they say like, come into the PCHS and say, hey, I need help with this, and they're like, oh, talk to Zack.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah. How long have you been doing that?
Since January.
Nice. And is it getting a little bit busier, or just depends?
It comes and it goes.
Sure.
You know, it slowed down when it got warmer, and I think that when it gets cold again, we'll probably see a big surge. But you know, especially like with the homeless population.
So when you said like I've been there, you have said that you were, you know, in addiction or in like substance abuse and turned your life around. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely.
And you can start wherever you.
I started going to jail when I was 18. Pretty much as soon as I was eligible, you know, that's where I was going.
Yeah.
And it was just jails and a lot of alcohol abuse from real young. You know, I started with booze, graduated to weed, mixing weed with booze. I turned 21 and the alcohol use really kicked up, right? And I'm young, right? So like it can't be that big of a problem. I'm just living my life.
Just partying.
Yeah, I'm just having
all
fun,
your
right?
friends are.
And the party stopped and I didn't, you know.
Yeah.
And that was a regular thing. Drink till 5, 6 in the morning. Go back to the liquor store at 8 a.m. You know. And then I found harder drugs, amphetamines, opiates. I'd go to the dentist. They'd pull my teeth. You know, I'd trade my teeth for pills. You know, and it just never would stop, right? And in and out of jail, and then eventually, like I kind of correlated the fact that, when I get intoxicated, I go to jail, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I just had to figure out, how do I stop going to jail? And I was able to stop going to jail, right? Like, I quit committing crimes, but, like, I could never stop using.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was able to build some semblance of a life for myself, like going to work, like I would always come to work hungover, drunk, or whatever, but like I was able to do something for myself, but like I just couldn't stop using.
Yeah.
And I went to rehab the first time in Juneau. 30 days.
Is that called the Rainforest?
Yeah,
Is that what that's called? Okay.
Rainforest Recovery Center. It's ran by Bartlett Regional Hospital.
Okay.
Went there for 30 days to kick a booze problem, right?
Yeah.
Came back and I was smoking weed the first day I got back. Like I just couldn't seem to get a hold of it.
Yeah.
Until I was suicidal, drunk, contemplating shooting myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to live like that anymore. I could hear my kids. I got 4 little kids, and they're in the house, and they're laughing, and they're playing, and I'm drunk on the porch, and I could just hear them, and I still didn't care.
Yeah.
And I knew that that's when something had to change. I had to do something different, And so I walked to the hospital, and then a friend who I knew was in recovery picked me up from the hospital, and they helped me come here to the Serenity House intake office.
Okay.
And then that's when I thought maybe I could do something different.
Yeah.
And so I checked into treatment. And it's no big secret that I did not stay the full 30 days like recommended. I left at day 15.
Sure. Why?
I'd been in treatment or jail or some form of probation, some type of outpatient, since I was 18.
You were, yeah.
And
how old were you then?
I was 27.
Yeah, so almost 10 years of just...
10 years of checking in with the man, going to group.
Yeah.
And I just was like, you know what? I knew where I was going to end up. After treatment, there's an aftercare, right? And then we do something about a spiritual condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I used 12-step meetings. I knew that's where I'd end up, in a 12-step fellowship. And so I just jumped in.
Yeah.
I left treatment and I went to the 8 a.m. meeting.
Different
I didn't want to be in treatment.
Than the 8 a.m. liquor store.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to be in treatment, but I didn't want to use. I wanted to be clean, but I didn't want to be in
Yeah,
treatment.
you didn't want to check in, check out, go to group. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just had to find something different, and I was able to get a sponsor and work steps and create a routine for myself. Right, like my sponsor would pick me up in the morning, and we'd go from the 8 a.m. meeting to work. And then we go take a break and go to the noon meeting, and we go back to work, and then I'd hit an evening meeting, and I did that for months and months and months.
You were all in, man.
I was all in.
Yeah.
It seems that's kind of what it took, though, because like you said, you were in treatment, in jail, and in all these different programs, and like you said, you always knew where you're going to end up. And then eventually, once you get your sponsor, it sounds like you kind of really made that investment for yourself finally, where you're finally just like, man, I am actually going to jump all the way in. Like this time, I know where I'm going to end up, but I'm going to end up somewhere better than where I ended up last time. Like I'm going to end up somewhere where I want to be versus
Right.
that just genuine ultimatum of, well, I'm going back to jail, whatever.
Right. And I didn't want to go to jail, and I couldn't kill myself, right? So it's like, what's there left to do? I either get sick and die or get better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what there is. You either do something about it and get better, or I'm going to die. You know what I mean? There was really no in between for me.
Yeah.
And so I had to do something different.
And if you're like, I'm going to die, I may as well give this whole getting better a shot
Right.
before that happens.
And when I got
Sounds
here,
crazy, but you would think that.
When I got here, it's specifically in this room, right over there was the first group I attended was art therapy before they let me into rehab.
Yeah.
And I was just broken, right? I was just broken.
Yeah.
And everybody looked at me and they were like, you need help, bro.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I was so broken. And then I checked into the treatment center, and I come back to this room for outpatient groups, right?
Yeah.
And I remember that feeling of being so broken, and I was in this room, and I couldn't see anything in front of me. I'd sit with my hood up and my head down, right? I couldn't look anybody in the eye. I couldn't, there was no full sentences happening for me. And if there was, it was just despair, disdain, you know what I mean? What's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point? Oh, so solemn, And to come back here 2 years later, you know, and it'd be totally different. And I'm in this room, and it's just, for lack of a better word, it's kind of a trip.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Kinda surreal.
Totally, man.
And if you would have told me then that I'd be here now doing this today, like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have believed you, not one bit. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And it's like, well, how do you stay clean for 2 years? How do you do this for 2 years? How do you stay clean for 6 months? You know,
Yeah.
I couldn't stay clean for 30 days.
Yeah.
You know, how do you do that? You know, and it's one day at a time, right? Like, I just put one foot in front of the other, and I just live today. You know what I mean? And well, how do you get 2 years? Is you do it consecutively every day for 2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and I think that those first couple days, or even before the first couple days, the initial asking for help, I have a problem. You know, that's the hardest part of the whole bit. Admitting that I need some help. A lot of people can't even do that.
Right.
You know, they're filled with shame, or they don't know where to go.
Yeah.
You know, or is my family going to support me, or what's going to happen to my kids? I can't go to detox. I have kids. I'll lose my job. I'll lose my apartment. You know, there's all this fear involved, and so people, they just don't go.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you think that structure that you had with going to the meetings and then going to work, do you think that really helped you overcome that apathy, or did that happen with time? I mean, you care now, but then you didn't really care.
Maybe a mixture of both, right? But the fact of the
balance.
matter is a man who was 57 years old and had been clean and sober for 30 years reached his hand out to me and said, "Let's go.
Yeah.
I'll come pick you up. You don't
Yeah.
have a car, I'll come get you. You
Yeah.
need something to do, come paint this fence."
Right.
You know, and I just didn't really understand the point, right? The fence painting, but my hand's moving, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not putting dope or liquor into my pie hole, and I'm
Yeah.
just painting this fence.
It's the
And then-
Danielson.
It's
Mr.
yes,
Miyagi,
Danielson,
yeah.
yes. So I'm just painting the fence, right?
Right.
And he's got me on this wax on, wax off thing, and he's filling my head with this new knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he teaches me a new routine and a skill, and for 8 hours, I'm not getting high.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm not getting drunk. And then at the end of the 8 hours, we go to another meeting. You know, so I'm filling my time. It's what do I do with my hands?
Yeah.
What do I do with my hands?
It's like people that smoke cigarettes for a long time. You know what I mean? It's
You
like
took
I'm
the-
just
You
don't
took the
have
words
something
out,
in your mouth.
You took the
yeah.
words out of my mouth because I quit smoking cigarettes, right? Like
Yeah.
17 days ago.
Wow.
Right? I'm 2 years clean, and I'm like, okay, now we're going to tackle the cigarette thing.
Yeah.
And this is the most difficult thing
Dude.
I've ever done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's what do I do with my hands? And
Right.
I'm compulsively eating sunflower seeds. It's just
Sure.
like, you know, what do I do? What do I do?
Yeah.
And so it's retraining my brain, you know. Oh, I ate, let's go smoke. No, I ate, no, I don't have to go outside. I'm breaking a habit too, you
Yeah,
see. We're forming healthier habits.
Yeah.
When we learn to go to meetings and we learn to call somebody, we learn to do something a little different, right? You know. So I'm learning, you know. I don't
Yeah.
have to go smoke.
Mhm.
You know, it's the same thing.
So as that structure gradually decreased, I mean, do you still go to meetings and with the same frequency, or
My routine is different, you know, because I'm doing something different. I'm somewhere different than I was 2 years ago. You
Yeah,
know,
totally.
My recovery's evolving.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. As you evolve, it evolves a little bit.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
going to so many meetings in early recovery. It was all I ever did. You know,
Yeah.
noon meeting with my sponsor. You know, take a break, noon meeting.
Yeah.
And now it's different. You
Yeah.
know, I'd hit an evening meeting, and then if you really want to know the truth, I got tired of going to meetings.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's a lot, right?
It's a lot,
It's
and
a
it's an
ton.
hour a day, and I got other things to do. I got a life now. I'm not getting high. I got to go to work. I got to do this.
Yeah.
My kids and my old lady, and I want to do this, that, and the other. Well, like, if I'm not taking care of my spiritual condition, and if I'm not giving back and being a part of, right, then I'm liable to go right back where I came
yeah,
from.
And then you don't.
So
you're not gonna be
I
doing any of them.
recommitted to, you know, at 2 years clean, recommitted. They talk about 90 meetings in 90 days in early recovery, and it's to form a habit, right?
Yeah.
We go to a meeting, we go to a meeting. Well, so I recommitted to 90 meetings in 90 days at 2 years clean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to be there, or I don't like the people there, or I already know, or I
It's kinda
this
one
or
of those
that.
Things, like if you're not progressing, you're regressing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, I get this stinking thinking, like, I don't want to be there, I don't care, da, da, da,
Yeah.
da. And I'm like, I got to reframe and re-engage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
And
maybe it's not for me.
That's what I was about to say.
necessarily.
Like, not to be like rude, but there sounds like you said there's a 57-year-old person there with 20, 30 years clean, right? 30, you said, right? That was like, I'm gonna help you out.
Right.
I mean, maybe now it's kind of like you're that. I mean, you're not 30, but it's
Right.
years. But it's you got a couple. You got a
Right.
you
I
know
Start
a
at
lot
2 to
of.
get to 30.
I got something to give
maybe
back
it's not about
today.
you right now. Yeah.
Right. But don't get it wrong, man.
But then
like,
it still
I gotta
helps
go
you.
sometimes.
No, I mean it still
Yeah.
helps you too.
When I'm losing my,
Yeah.
that's what I know to do is to go
Yeah.
to a meeting.
Yeah.
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 Because I'm not cured, right? Like I just have today.
Yeah.
I might have 2 years clean, but like I have today, and that's all I have.
Yeah.
I live my life 24 hours at a time today. I don't stress too much on 3 months from now, and it's not to say I don't have goals.
Yeah.
But I'm not spinning out on what we're gonna do on the 27th of December.
Yeah.
Because I'm not there.
Yeah.
I'm just not
That's a
there.
good point.
I don't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
It'll come.
Yeah.
Just worry about today, right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's so much, just like this last episode we recorded, there was so much like about kind of giving up control, and I was like, just like it sounded like you were holding up a mirror to like so I'm like, dang man, like, because she was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I didn't want to be thinking like this or behaving like this about giving up control, and I'm thinking like, man, I don't want to do that anymore either. Like some extent of just like, letting some things go and everything like. And then you say like, this whole idea of like, I'm going to, kind of for today kind of gig. And like, I have goals, but I'm also not going to, as you said, spin out about the 27th of December. Like there's so much like, as we've done more and more podcasts that is just like, man, I think everybody, what this woman said last time was like, I think everybody needs to do some steps, just adults, but like, it seems like some of these recovery story podcasts that we're hearing, like some of the like best like living life stuff, like has come out of like really plugging into these programs and really like, going to these meetings and giving up this control. So like, I don't know, maybe that's just kind of a rabbit trail, but we just keep hearing such cool
because
things, man.
you're not too far off base, right? Like the 12 steps. I don't care if it's AA, NA. They got like Gambling Anonymous or like Sex Addicts Anonymous. That doesn't matter. It's the same 12-step formula, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about liquor or dope or gambling, food, sex, whatever. It's a design for living, right?
Yeah, that's what it seems like. These people who have gone through these like programs of like how to live your life, like they got a better, like as we hear this stuff today, like this is how I live my life. I'm like, dang, like I could use some of that. Like I could use some of this. Like,
and then I meet, because not everybody in my life and not everybody at my job or people I see in the community, not everybody's working a 12-step program,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I need to remember that.
Yeah.
And especially people who are abstinent or they're in their own type of recovery, whatever they're doing, and they're not using, they're bettering themselves. Not everybody uses the 12-step model. They just don't.
Yeah.
And I need to remember that, especially at my job. Not everybody works a 12-step program.
Yeah.
And in my head, sometimes I get so frustrated. I'm like, will you just get a problem so you can get a program?
Yeah,
Maybe
dude.
you could deal with this. Like, but not everybody's there,
Right.
Sure.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I just accept them for where they're at,
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest things you've said that kind of relates to a lot of these other stories we're doing is a lot of people seemingly that we've talked to when they're going through recovery, they have a lot of these characteristics about how they feel while they're spending their time. When they're in an addiction, it feels like they spend a lot of their time feeling shameful and feeling like they're kind of trapped and trying to have control but not actually in control. And then when they start taking these steps and doing these things, they get more liberated and they start thinking a different way and replacing these feelings with joy and pride and things they can, and building blocks for a better life. And like you said, like you were there doing the Mr. Miyagi thing, you're painting houses, and that's one of those things where at the end of 8 hours, when you were using at the end of 8 hours, you're like, man, I've been high all day, I gotta get high again. Whereas when you're done, painting that fence, you're like, man, I didn't get high today. That's a good thing to be proud of. And this fence looks good.
Yeah.
That's something to be proud of. So you're still kind of replacing those sour emotions with something just a little more purposeful and something a little just that make you happier, a little more happiness, bringing bringing happiness into your life.
Right.
Is that it's kind of something you kind of tie into your job now, you know, when it comes to being a peer supporter? Like, do you try to give people a little direction as to a sense of purpose and something they can be proud of?
I think a sense of purpose, man. I think that's what everybody's looking for,
Right.
right? It's like that's why there's the age-old question, like, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but nobody ever says, like, I want to be a dope fiend.
Right.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I want
Yeah.
to be, you know, I want to sit in front of a liquor store at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Wait from them.
Nobody says that, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so, like, we do those things, but, like, when we stop, right, like a purpose, like to really have a purpose, like, what do I do, you know?
Yeah.
And my purpose today is how can I be helpful, you know? My number one purpose is to be of service to, you know, to God and those about me.
Yeah.
You know, how can I be helpful to you?
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times, man, like people, sometimes they don't even know that they need help.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, until you ask them, what can I do for you?
Mm-hmm.
How can I be helpful?
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, oh, wait a
Well,
minute.
I guess.
Wait, maybe I do need some help, you know? And the reality of the matter is oftentimes we all need a little extra help,
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
you know? Even if it's not some big crazy thing,
Yeah.
help me fill out a paperwork so I can go to rehab, you know,
Right.
that's pretty extreme, but you know, sometimes that's what it takes. But
Ride to
sometimes it's
hospital.
just, you know, I just need a ride. Can you just hold the door? You know,
Yeah.
can you just hold this? And in my job, like with my line of work, you know, sometimes it's just I need help to make a phone call.
Yeah.
I have extreme anxiety and I need to make an appointment. Can you help me? You know, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not out here saving the world and finding homeless people homes and getting everybody into rehab. I'm not.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just helping them make a phone call or providing access. You don't have a phone? Here, you can use this phone and you can do it, you
Mhm.
know. And it's those small things that add up to something real big, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If everybody kind of did, I mean, I think when you say like that you're helping people out and everything, and sometimes they don't know how to ask for help or that they don't know that help is really available. I think one thing you're kind of doing is in small but significant ways, kind of like building, I don't know, some basic trust for them, like I don't know, like that they can, not to be ridiculous, but kind of just trust their neighbors, you know, trust like their fellow people, like, hey, you know, if I need some help, like there might be some there, you know.
Kind of restore
Um,
that faith in humanity, that there is people that are out here willing to help me.
Yeah, I mean, because you know, you hear a lot of trauma, or you hear a lot of trauma stories, or you know, some like things that have happened that it's like, hey, I thought these people, like I could trust them, I thought I could trust them, I thought they'd be there for me, and they weren't, you know, and that kind of like it just creates this framework that like people aren't there for me, I can't trust people, and that's pretty big. I bet a lot of the population, you know, that you're working with has some like framework that says like, the people I thought that were going to be there for me haven't been, you know, the people that said they would do these things for me haven't, and like you're kind of like, hey, when I say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. If you need help, like I'm here for you. You know, that's like seemingly small stuff, but can really build like some significant framework repair, it seems like.
Right, and we're here to do that. Like oftentimes when people come to my office or they come to me for help, right? When they're talking to somebody across a desk, it's never good for them, right? They're talking to
Yeah.
a doctor, they're talking to a judge, a PO, a lawyer, you know, and it's hammer time. You're in trouble. We're going, you know, it's nothing good really comes from it.
Yeah.
They don't have good experiences. And sometimes, right, they come to my office and they say, oh, you're going to come talk to this guy. And they walk in, right? I got cool artwork on the wall.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm sitting across the table, and I'm wearing a flannel, right, and I'm
Yeah.
covered in tattoos,
Mhm.
and I got Bart Simpson on my little key tag, right? And they're looking at me, and they're like, "Whoa, wait a minute, you know, this isn't like anything I've ever. Maybe I can, you know, and it's because I look like them. We talk the same. We've really been to those same places, and so it helps me build the rapport, right?" And I say, let's go. We're going to walk out of these woods together.
Mhm.
You and me. I'm not going to do anything for you,
Yeah.
but I'm going to show you how,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah.
It's something that's believable for them,
Yeah.
you know.
Do you think it's the fact that they kind of get the idea that you're not going to judge them because you've been there, or is it just the fact that you've been through similar experiences? Like what?
Both, absolutely both.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not just substance abuse issues,
Right.
right? You know, once upon a time I was far, far behind in child support. You know, with no hope of ever getting out of that hole. They took my driver's license. They, you know, the whole bit, and over time I was able to take care of that. You know, I take care of my kids, and I pay this debt off, right?
Right.
And then they closed the child support cases. I no longer have that monkey on my back, and they give me a driver's license back, right?
Yeah.
And I really went through that. And one of my guys says, "Oh, I'm so far behind. I'll never." I said, "Well, wait a minute. You know, there's some hope here, and I did this, and I'll show you how."
Yeah.
And I did, and now he's making the payment and doing the same thing. He's on the same road for the same thing. You know, like I said, it's not just substance abuse issues.
Yeah.
You know, we're just trying to help.
Yeah. Anybody who's struggling with anything.
Right. You are not alone. You are not the only person who has ever had this problem before.
Yeah.
Believe me.
Yeah.
You know.
And you seem to have a pretty cut and dried kind of approach to how you dealt with it. What kind of emotions do you have to deal with, or was it really kind of more of a logic thing? It's like, well, either I die or I get better, and here I just need to take it one step at a time, and then you just work through that.
Well, like I'm a critical thinker, right? Like I'm a thinker. Like okay,
Right.
I'm gonna die or I'm gonna this, right?
Right,
And I
right.
didn't come up with that idea on my own either. Somebody told me that.
Yeah. Sure.
You know what I mean?
You're just like, that makes sense. That's
You're
logical.
right. And so like a lot of people, they like to theorize or romanticize this 12-step process, and recovery's so healing, and I found all this immense freedom immediately. And can I speak freely?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I'm
definitely,
like,
dude.
that. This hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
No
what I
doubt,
mean?
man.
Like I'm kicking a dope habit. Okay, now that that's gone, I'm rewiring dishonesty problems, and I'm rewiring the way that I treat people, and I'm learning to look at this, and I don't always like what I find when I look at myself, right?
Yeah.
You know, because I'm a flawed human,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, oh, I'm dishonest, and I like to abuse people, and I've been a shady thief for my whole life. Oh no, you know, that hurt to look at that,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of people, like I said, they just romanticize the growth process, and I'm doing so well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? This hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like, so there's been a lot of emotion involved, you know. It's not all cookies and cakes and rainbows,
Yeah.
you know. It's not, and I'm a human being, and I'm flawed, and I hurt sometimes real bad, you know. Like, just to be open and honest about the whole thing, you know. I think I had 11 months clean, and I'm screaming at the sky, you know, God, take this away from me. I was so irritated and so frustrated, and I was punching the hood of my truck, and I'm just like, please, 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 you know, take this away. Take this pain from me right now. You know, like,
Yeah.
and other people are just like, oh, it's so great and wonderful and everything, and I'm like, ugh, you know. So there's been some really serious emotion with this whole thing, like, you know, the books I read on it tell me I have a spiritual sickness, you know, and I'm overcoming a spiritual malady and a dope habit, and learning a new way to live, and fixing the wrongs of my past and all that. Like, it doesn't really sound all that fun.
Doesn't sound like a vacation.
No,
dude.
no.
way.
No, this is a walk,
Sounds like some hard labor.
right?
Yeah.
That's interesting. It is interesting that you say that. You know, I've thought like, you know, people they don't want to feel. They have this fear, and they're using, you know, so they don't have to feel as much. So they, you know, don't have to like be as afraid as much as some people have said. You know, I didn't fear the world anymore when I would use crystal meth. I wouldn't fear anymore. You know, and so then you take that away, and not only do you have all this baggage from years and years of use, but I've said this in a podcast before, but I was thinking about it the other day, and it was that, you know, the addict thinks that he can use, you know, let that be like a tornado, and then walk and then stop using. So a tornado roars for years of use, and then you walk out of the house, and it's like, oh, well, I'm done using. There's not like massive cities of mess, right? But that's not true. Like this tornado has made a complete mess. And I used to think like, okay, so you got legal problems, you got financial problems, you got relationship problems, but really it seems to me as I hear more and more stories that is not like, it's not necessarily these practical and like tangible things. It's much more like your inner personal, like as you said, a spiritual malady, but like that's that interpersonal, like not necessarily problems, but like some really hard things to clean up. It's not like, oh, I got to, because you can clean up your legal stuff. I mean, you might have some felonies, like people might have felonies, and those are, I'm not downplaying those, but, and you might have like some financial problems, and those are going to be hard, right? I mean, you're going to have to work around that. You're going to have to get a job, but like it seems like those are all, 1, 3, 5 years, those can get taken care of, but like these interpersonal, like, wow, this is like, these are the hard parts of me. These are the hard feelings that I haven't felt before. Those seem to be that like things that you're consistently having to clean or to build up. And I mean, those seem harder and like much more long lasting than like paying. I'm not downplaying the child support, but you can pay that off in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. That's a long time. But like these hard parts of your inner core, like, man, when I look at myself, like sometimes I don't like what I see. Like that sounds like really pain. That sounds like pain.
Absolutely. And we can change,
Right.
Like they talk about sobering up a horse thief, right? Well, what happens if you sober up a horse thief? What do you have? You just have a sober horse thief.
Sure. Wow.
And I had to stop being a horse thief.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you could not drink and not use all day long for probably long periods of time. And if you're doing things like, then what do you know what I mean? So like it's not just about putting the liquor and the dope down.
Sure.
That's just the beginning. What we're shooting for here is a change in behavior.
Mm-hmm.
We don't lie and cheat and steal anymore.
Yeah.
But the problem is we're just human beings. Like sometimes I fall short. I'm not out there robbing the bank and committing murder. You know what I mean? But like I do slip up from time to time.
Yeah.
I tell this story about a couple days, maybe the day after I got out of Serenity House, I was paying for some food and I was buying a couple things at the store, and the lady rang me up and she forgot to ring up my chicken from the deli.
Mm-hmm.
And the old me would have been like, "Oh, cool, free chicken!"
Right on,
and now we got $5 for some beer, like.
And it's not even my fault.
And
I
it's
just
not,
didn't ring it up.
and it's
it's her
yeah,
fault.
and it's a win, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, wait a minute. You didn't, and this is all so foreign and it's so agonizing, and I'm like, you didn't ring up my chicken.
Yeah.
And she says, what? Like, she doesn't care. Like, why do I care? And I said, no, ma'am, like, this is really important to me that you please ring this up.
Yeah.
And she's looking at me like I'm crazy.
She's like, bro, it's just some chicken, man.
Like who cares? And
skirt
I'm like,
outta
I know.
here.
And
This
I'm like,
popcorn chicken's $3.99, dude. Get out of my face.
but I care.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm
like,
and
bro,
I'm
why do
learning
you care
and I'm,
so much?
I'm learning to care,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then another
Wow.
time